Hello, farmers, and welcome to the harvest season. My name is Al,
And I'm Micah. Hello.
and we're here today to talk about farming games. Woo!
Yes. Very excited. Always excited to talk about farming games.
You were very matter of the fact there. You were like, "Yes, we are. We are here to talk
Yes.
about farming games."
As a matter of fact, yes.
um, so today we are going to talk about Garden Story, a game that I know both of us have been looking forward to for quite a while.
Yes, indeed.
And we'll obviously have lots of news. Not as much as the last time I had Micah on, though. That was the bulk news
The
episode.
news onslaught of.
It was quite crazy. I think we were meant to talk about something else at that point, but
Yeah.
we decided just to go news because there was so much news. But first of all, Micah, what have you been playing?
I've been playing Garden Story. I actually will get to it, but I just finished it tonight. For me, it is nighttime. For you, it is the morning. But tonight I just finished Garden Story. So that's what I've mostly been playing. I've also been playing some. I got back onto the daily Animal Crossing. Kind of just like jump into my town, do my little daily tasks, and then that's it. Since there is an update coming at some point in October, and I want to be kind of prepared for it. I don't want to log in when the update happens and then have all of my villagers be like, "Where have you been?"
Yeah. Yeah, and then you have to waste your time making them all happy again
Yeah.
before you actually do the new content.
That's right.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Maybe I should do that at some point.
I've also been working my way through Dragon Quest V slowly. That's kind of like my put down and pick it back up game right now.
Cool.
And Final Fantasy 14. Doing
Excellent.
lots of kind of preparatory things for the new expansion in November.
Farming on the moon.
Farming on the moon. That's right.
Because why not? Did you listen to our Final Fantasy episode, which definitely was not meant to be a Final Fantasy episode?
No, I didn't. You did a Final Fantasy episode? I listened
I
listened to the Dragon Quest episode.
So I did an episode with Greg on why he doesn't like farming games, and it basically turned into talking about Final Fantasy. And then it was farming coming to Final Fantasy 14 on the moon for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know how it happened. I'll need to re-listen to it to figure out how that happened. But never say we don't talk about a whole breadth of games.
It's true. My favorite JRPG franchises, both discussed, amongst one of my favorite genres. I'm happy with that.
Why not?
I would love to listen to Greg talk about Final Fantasy 14, so I'll have to go back and give it a listen.
It's like 6 months ago or something, I think. I lose track. There are many episodes of this podcast now.
Yeah, you were just saying before we started that you've been doing this for 3 years now, which is like
nearly, yeah. January will be 3 years.
Following along. I mean, I made the logo, so it's I was there at the inception for some of it.
One of only a few people who knew before it was publicly announced.
That's true. I did. Whether or not I was supposed to, I don't know, but I did.
Well, you can't really make a logo for it if you don't know what it is.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
Like, can you make a logo for this podcast that I'm not going to tell you what it's about?
I mean, that's kind of on par with some of the client work that I get. So,
I mean, I didn't really have a concrete idea of what I wanted, so I couldn't have done that without your help. I was like, I want corn, but I don't know how.
Corn microphone.
Yeah, it worked out well.
Yeah.
Cool. Is that all you've been playing? Is that everything?
Yeah. It's a lot of I'm very big on checklists right now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that I've always kind of been really into doing is making it. I do it for just my day in general too, where I'll make a checklist of like
Yeah.
these are the things that I have to do, and then I it I don't know, keeps me motivated to like keep checking things off of that list. So I have turned that into for games that require some level of upkeep.
Hmm.
I'll make like a checklist for that game, and then I'll be like, okay, this is like a reasonable thing that I can do this week. Or for
Yeah.
Final Fantasy, it's like these are the things that I would like to do before the expansion, and so
Yeah.
I have my little checklist games where I log in and do some things, and that's it.
Makes sense.
What about you? What have you been playing?
I have been obviously playing Garden Story.
Yeah, you don't say.
What else have I been playing? Not a huge amount. I think Garden Story has taken up most of my gaming time the last wee while. Um, just been busy with life. I think I've been doing some more shiny hunting in Pokemon.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Gearing up for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Is that it? Did I get it?
yeah, that's it. Yeah. I'm all excited about that. Yeah, no, I'm trying to. I'm at maybe 60% of my Shining Living decks, so trying to get through some more of that.
Okay, that's
Lots of
great.
shinies.
That's a pretty good percentage.
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of go through like bursts of it. So, uh, I got maybe 30% of the way through within the course of like 2 months. Mostly through like trading old event Pokemon for shinies because I was like, I don't really care about these events and people like them. So here, give me some shinies for them. And then I kind of stopped for like 2 years. And then yeah, just I keep restarting and going right. End up doing like 10 or 20% of the decks,
I
and then
see. See.
stopping again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
As it happens, as it
yeah,
feels comfortable to do it.
yeah.
Otherwise,
Um,
burn out on it. And
of course, of course. I'm about a third of the way through the Galar Pokemon.
oh, that's
So
pretty good.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to bulk my way through them
Yeah.
before I go back again.
Yeah. Are you going for like forms and stuff too, or are you just like I know there's like
So
what is it? Vivillon has like 18 or 19 different forms or
yeah,
something.
so I'm not going to do them at least to start with. Um, what I'm doing because apart from anything, trying to get the Vivian shiny forms will be fun because you need to change your 3DS region for each save. Fun fact: if you're looking to get the different Vivian and you don't want to have to trade with people, you can change the region on your 3DS, but you have to do it before you create the save file.
Oh.
So if you change the region and then you start a new save file, then save the save file, and then you can change your region back. It does it at the start of the game. It decides what region it
Interesting.
is.
Hmm.
But obviously that would be a lot of work because, yeah, as you say, there's close to 20 of them. So at this point, I'm just looking at getting one of each. I am doing the regional forms, so the Alolan and Galarian forms. I'm getting the shinies of them. But in
Okay.
terms of like, yeah, this Pokemon has different forms. Probably not gonna bother with that,
I
but
see.
I might do if I finish the rest. Um, yeah.
So I guess one last question I have. What are you allowing yourself to use Pokemon Go shinies
Oh yeah. Oh, of course.
as part of your okay?
Yeah.
I know that
Yeah.
there are sometimes people are like, well, I don't want to use the Pokemon Go shiny because I don't want to have to like I'd like to keep it in Pokemon Go, or uh I'd like to still hunt for it in the games rather than send it over from Pokemon Go. So I wasn't sure if you were.
Yeah. I'm not precious about where the shinies come from,
Yeah.
other than obviously I don't just want to like hack them all in because
Right.
that wouldn't be interesting. But yeah, no, if I've got a shiny in Pokemon Go, I've done the work for it, right?
Yeah. I
Like,
agree.
sure, it was slightly easier, but let's be honest, there are some methods in the main games that are just as easy, if not easier, than getting shinies in Pokemon Go because yes, the chance is higher in Pokemon Go, but you can't hunt for a specific Pokemon most of the time.
Yeah.
Um, you only
It's
have
true.
what you have access to. Whereas in the main games, you can go chain fishing, which is very high chance of getting a shiny, or wormhole hunting, which is the same. It's not Pokemon Go is not uniquely different in that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
let's be
yeah,
honest, it's one of the hardest methods in Pokemon, which involves getting up and going outside. So
yeah, exactly. And of course, if I'm not going to use Pokemon Go, I'll never have a shiny Darkrai. So
that's true. Or a shiny
I still
Mew, I
still don't
guess.
have one.
Maybe.
Or well, yeah. So yes, there technically was a shiny Mew event.
Yeah.
But it was only available in Japan
Mm-hmm.
in Emerald.
Yeah.
And it was literally 1 in 8,000 chance. So it was an incredibly rare one.
The
Before you could get
likelihood
the
of
Pokemon Go one.
having that is incredibly low, I'm sure.
Exactly.
And not
exactly.
being, like a hacked one.
Yeah, so you can hack in the item to get to the Mew.
Mm-hmm.
But even then it's still a very high chance of getting it.
Yeah.
But I tell you, my rarest shiny is I do have a shiny Arceus,
Oh.
which was only available in one event, and it was a Japanese event. Um, so the way that it worked is it was a 1 in 20 chance of getting a shiny for it.
Okay.
And you got the code from pre-ordering the tickets to one of the films. 14th one, I think.
Okay.
2014. So that was obviously quite difficult to get, but I managed to get it from someone who got the event. Managed to convince them to trade for a bunch of stuff, which was
Wow.
great. So my most prized shiny, that one is.
That's pretty great. I had no idea about that specific event. So
Yeah.
I sometimes feel like I am missing a lot, like when there are times where I'm really focused on something else or like, whatever. I feel like I'm going to come back and find that I missed, I don't know, a bunch of events that had, like very limited chances to get something. Like, they do events for things all the time. Like I know they did the
Yeah.
for Let's Go, they did a lot of events in Japan too, like the Giovanni Mewtwo, and they had the like birthday Chansey and things like that. So I'm always like, what am I missing out on that I just
Yeah.
don't know exists?
Yeah. You need to keep your eyes open for the shiny Zamazenta and Zacian, which haven't been announced for America yet, but almost certainly will. They've been announced for Japan and South Korea so far, so that's the one you want to keep your eyes open for.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I used to be like really obsessively into cataloging events, Pokemon events and stuff like that. Um, I actually moderated the Pokemon Trades subreddit, which was fun because you had to know a lot to actually, because it was all about making sure that Pokemon are legitimate, and that the kind of burden of proof for proving your Pokemon were legitimate was quite high. So I got to know a lot about the different events and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Anyway, that's a very niche Pokemon content in this farming game podcast.
I mean, we're talking about what we're playing. That's
We are.
so
We
very
yeah.
and we're both Pokemon fans, so
We are. I think that was all I've been playing. Just some Garden Story and some Pokemon. So yeah, news. Micah, you reminded me about this news item that I hadn't put in. We got the date for the Animal Crossing Direct.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So
we did.
So that is on the 15th of October. So if you're listening to this on the day the podcast comes out, that's in 2 days. That's on Friday. And we should hear about the update, which is exciting. It's a 20-minute long direct, which I can't decide whether that's long or not.
I can't either. It's hard to say because we just had the Smash Direct,
Yeah.
and that was 40 minutes, and personally, because I don't care that much about Smash, felt like that was very long. But I
Yeah.
get that they're showing off, move sets and things like that. Uh, but I feel like most of the time for previous Animal Crossing like event things, it's just been a Twitter video that's like a minute or two long. So 20 minutes feels
Yeah.
like a lot. Um, I don't know if I'm assuming you haven't discussed and are not going to discuss any of the like leaked data mined stuff for Animal Crossing.
We've discussed some of it. I don't think we've
Okay.
discussed any of it in detail,
Okay.
but we've definitely discussed some of it. Yeah. I mean, the important thing is that this was a. So this is specifically they've teased Brewster in this game, in this update,
Yeah. Yes.
which we kind of assumed was coming
Mm-hmm.
because it, had been in the code. The fact that Brewster had
Yeah.
a cafe above the museum, so that was confirmed in the direct. But that's all we know at this point. There are, as you've mentioned, there are some other data mined things that I don't think we'll discuss the specifics of.
Sure.
And I guess the question is whether they're coming in this update as well or whether they're not. So I think the only thing we've properly discussed is, and that's specific to this podcast, is there has been more code about other crops. So obviously we have pumpkins just now, and there are hints that there might be some more
Mm-hmm.
different crops coming, which
And I
would be interesting.
think they had maybe I'm misremembering, but I think there was some indication at like cooking being a thing. So that would
Yes, yeah,
maybe
there was.
imply that like there would be a pretty like wide variety of crops that you can, or
Yeah,
at least more than pumpkins. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I wasn't gonna talk too much about the data mine or anything, any leaks in specific, but I feel like if they're going to cover, if they were to cover a lot of what was in that data mine, that feels like that
hmm
would be enough for 20 minutes.
yeah,
But
yeah. I feel like it has to be more than Brewster, right? Because you can't really spend 20 minutes talking about a cafe.
right,
Um,
there
that feels
was,
like a lot.
it does, it really does. There was also speculation around the time that they of the Nintendo Direct when they'd first announced that there was something coming. There was speculation that maybe we were going to be getting some new villagers or
Mm.
old villagers, because they announced that there's going to be a fifth series of the the Animal Crossing amiibo cards. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a little confusing because nobody really knows what would fill like a full set of like another full set of amiibo cards,
Mm-hmm.
if we're including just like the villagers that are new to New Horizons, and like every set has like 10 or so NPCs, like special versions of NPCs. I mean, if it's just those even, which is,
Yeah,
like that's really not enough for like a full set of randomized packs of cards.
yeah,
Um, so I think everyone's kind of curious what that's gonna entail then. I think I've seen some people say that maybe I personally find it hard to believe that they'll add a bunch of new villagers, like brand new villagers. I could maybe see them bringing
yeah,
back some old villagers from like the N64 or GameCube Animal Crossing that didn't make it.
yeah.
That they've since kind of gotten rid of. But I guess I don't know. It's very mysterious right now.
Yeah, so I just because I need to know these things, I just had a look, and the last Animal Crossing Direct, so specifically Animal Crossing Direct, was in February 2020, so a month before the release of the game.
Okay,
So we haven't had a direct since the game released
sure.
for Animal Crossing. So they've either been in other directs or, as you say, just a trailer uploaded to YouTube. Um, and that direct was 27 minutes. So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't want people too excited because I feel like, yeah, maybe we'll just end up disappointed. But it does feel like it could be quite a big update if there's 20 minutes. And the update before launch, giving us all the information about the new game that was coming out, was 27 minutes long, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, it's possible that they could just go into detail about how the cafe works, since
I
there
don't.
have been a lot
What
of
is
new
this? A
villagers.
Smash
'Cause
Direct? Come on.
I know. I don't see 20 that filling 20 minutes, but I mean it does.
Yeah.
It's maybe like a good few minutes of explaining, like birthdays and coffee orders and things like that, but
Yeah.
also, apparently it's Brewster's birthday is October 15th, so
Yes, I
that's why
did
they
see
put it
that
on
as
the.
well, which is very fun. I
Yeah,
like
that's
the
cute.
fact that they're doing that. A little bit of a shame they couldn't have had it released for then, but
Yeah,
it is what it is.
there's also
This is fun.
there's also the possibility that this could be maybe like informing about a like a title update to like a expansion, I guess. Which is like what we've seen
So
with the Welcome Amiibo when they like added a ton of content to New Leaf.
yeah, so the Um, it could be. I would say that it specifically says it is for the November update. So I don't think it'll be for other future updates, although I
Mm-hmm.
guess they could do like a hint if there is more coming. But I think it will, and there might be stuff like presumably they're going to tell us about because we don't know who's in the new set of amiibo cards, do we?
Right. I mean, we
So
assume
they could
it's
tell us
it's
that.
the villagers that are new to New Horizons, like But that's only what is that like 13 villagers or something?
Yeah, and presumably there are still some villagers who don't have them, so they could be other ones.
Yeah, as far as I know, all of the villagers have an amiibo card that are
Oh, really?
yeah, as far as I'm aware, that are villagers that you could get in like New Leaf, which is also New Horizons. Because there were
Are there
four
not some in
sets.
New Horizons that weren't in New Leaf other
Yeah,
than the
there's only
brand new?
like 13. I don't know. Let me. I don't want to misinform. So, there are at the very least 400. There are 400 Animal Crossing Amiibo cards.
Yeah, I'm literally just seeing that as well. Yeah, there do seem to be, I think, exactly 400.
Yeah, it looks like that's the case. And then I think maybe also the
Yeah.
Sanrio cards, which is 6.
Yes.
So the other thing that actually reminded me, my initial thought on this was when the discussion was starting up about what that series could entail. I thought maybe they could also include the other amiibo villagers that were part of the Welcome to Amiibo update that we didn't get. So like, in addition to villagers that are themed after Sanrio, there are villagers that were themed after Nintendo games that were tied to
Oh.
specific amiibo. Like Wolf Link, there was a W Link villager that was just a wolf villager that looked like Wolf Link.
Oh.
If you scan the Wolf Link amiibo, there was a
Yeah.
pig villager that looked like Ganon. There were two squirrels modeled after uh, Callie and Marie from Splatoon. There was actually a Monster Hunter cat. There were a number of amiibos that gave you villagers that are not accessible amiibos anymore. So it's possible
Right.
that they could be making those into cards and bring them back to the game. Um,
Yeah.
since they're pretty, newish in the last, within the last two games. So
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I guess we'll find out. Yeah. I don't want to get too excited, but I feel like it could be quite
yeah,
an interesting update.
yeah, I think so too.
We'll
Yeah,
see.
there are currently 393 recruitable villagers,
Right.
and 400 amiibo cards. A lot of them are NPCs. There's like a good chunk there are NPCs, but I think there's different. I don't know. There's some leeway there, but I think roughly every villager has an amiibo card. It's like very
Okay.
few that don't.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. It's just interesting because there are like, other than Brewster, nobody really knows what's gonna happen, and I don't think we're gonna get 20 minutes of Brewster.
No, I think I'd be very surprised if that was just it. I mean, obviously, even if it's just here are the cards,
Mm-hmm.
even that still feels like it's not very much for that.
Right.
But yeah, we'll find out. It's coming out soon, so we'll have all the news for you in the next uh, podcast episode. Although, if you really care, you'll probably be watching the direct. But if you only vaguely care, we'll update you.
Yeah.
Um, the Coral Island early access has been delayed till 2022. Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
That was
That's all.
that was. I feel like, maybe not inevitable, but maybe expected.
I'm never surprised when a Kickstarter game gets delayed.
Yep, me too.
So, so yeah, if you're looking for that, you're there. You go. I think this game is looking absolutely gorgeous. I'm really excited to play it.
It looks beautiful.
I
I'm
didn't.
scrolling through this update that you linked, and it looks very pretty.
Yeah, there's a devlog with a bunch of information on some updates and stuff. Which, yeah, the more I look at this game, the more I think it just looks absolutely gorgeous, and I'm really excited to play it. So yeah, there we go. Ooblets have released an update, another update, and you can sit down on chairs in the game now.
You sure can. I saw this on my timeline, and one of the few pieces of news that I actually saw naturally instead of having you link to me. And it's a good announcement. I didn't realize you couldn't sit on. I still have yet to play Ooblets. I didn't realize you couldn't sit on chairs. I didn't know this was a requested thing, but
I think we're at the point now where if you've not played Ooblets yet, I would wait for the final release because I think it's early next year. They'd said late 2021, early 2022, and considering there's another update that I think is still expected to be released before the 1.0 release, I suspect it'll be next year. But I mean, that's close enough that it's
sure.
You may as well wait, I think, for the final release.
Yeah.
Although,
I'm waiting for that Switch release.
I was gonna say, if they're gonna go for Switch, then that'll be presumably end of next year, beginning of 2023.
Yeah.
They haven't committed. They've still not committed to anything other than PC and Xbox. But I know that they have said they want to get on more platforms after the final release.
Yeah.
And you gotta think that will be their priority because every single time there's a poll for what console people want games on, the Switch is almost always overwhelmingly up there.
Yeah.
Like I think it was it Summer in Mara? I think 90% of people wanted it on Switch. Which is just crazy.
It's a good console. Can't argue with
that.
Mean,
yeah, but imagine, right? Like, so when did it come out? 2017. So that's nearly 4 years ago. Imagine 4 years ago when we'd just been told that this console was coming out. That if you were told that it would be basically what everybody wants games on, you'd be like, I mean, I'm happy about that, but I can't believe you, right? It's just not something, especially when the Wii U basically nobody had, and the 3DS was not the same at all. So I think it's incredible that we're at that point.
I think so too. It's great.
I love it.
That's where my head is at all the time. Is it coming to Switch? No?
Yeah.
Then I'll wait till it is coming to Switch because I know it will be eventually.
Yeah. Most things do eventually come, except really indie things that don't end up making a lot of money.
Yeah.
But if they make any decent amount of money, I think everybody's plan is to eventually get it on Switch.
Mm-hmm. And very, very, like something that I could probably only play on the PS5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Probably not going to come to the Switch. At least not until there's a vastly updated model. Not just a screen, but, much more.
So yeah, if you want to sit down in the game, you can do that. I don't know whether this. So I know that they had released a timeline for Ooblets, and they had talked about a secret update, but I don't think this was it because they said the secret update had another region in it, and I don't think this one has an unannounced region released in it. This seems like a reasonably small update. Um, so I think there is still another update coming
Okay.
before the 1.0 release.
Okay.
Let me just double check that makes sense, but I'm
It
pretty
looks
sure
great, and I love the premise
it
of it,
does.
but yeah, it takes a lot for me anymore to like sit down at my PC and play a game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't.
Yeah, it's really fun to play, but I obviously have not played it as much as I would love to because of that exact reason.
Right.
Not on my Switch. So we'll see. I might play it a little bit more after the final release. But yeah, I'll probably end up because it was the same with Littlewood. I played it a little bit on PC, but as soon as it came to Switch, I played it much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that very quickly became, my wife does not really play PC games at all.
Yeah.
And it very quickly became one of her favorite farming games once it came to the Switch. So Littlewood specifically, not.
Yeah. No, it was a good game.
Yeah.
Um, the yeah, no, it definitely says the 0.9 update came with a new region, and this one definitely did not.
Okay.
So there is still another update. I wonder, they never gave an exact date for the 0.9 update. It just says late 2021. So we'll see what happens with that. But
Okay.
I don't think they've given us. I think this was the first kind of information on something they'd given us in a while. This update. Next, we have another delay. Ova Magica the beta has been delayed till the second half of 2022, and therefore the final release has been delayed to 2023.
Okay.
Again, there we go. Just information. This podcast is pro
Another delay, you say?
delays, pro getting your game how how you want it to be
Yeah.
before you release it.
I
Obviously, we're
have.
not pro delay in the concept of it, just in terms of
We just only want delays.
yeah, just always delay your game.
If the game wasn't delayed at least twice, I don't want it. But
Well,
yes,
have I got news for
eliminate
you about
crunch.
Animal Crossing? Only delayed once.
Too bad. Unfortunate. But yes, pro delays. Eliminate crunch. It's not good for anybody. I have not seen this until now. I didn't know that
I do
this
not.
game existed.
Yeah,
It looks
it
very
is
cute.
a farming / creature collection / creature growing
I am
game.
absolutely on board with this.
Yeah,
This
the
cow
blobs are gorgeous.
bull sunflower thing is very cute.
Yeah, I very much am looking forward to breeding / growing all my weird blobs.
Yeah, I like that they're all just blobs with different things on them and different
Yeah,
patterns.
yeah.
It's very cute. It gives me
Very fun.
like Chow Garden vibes a little bit.
I don't know what that is.
It's the little creatures from Sonic Adventure, I think was. It was like a little separate area where you could go and raise little. They're called chows. They're like, I don't even know how to describe what they look like.
Oh yeah,
Teardrops, I guess, kind of.
they're like the Dragon Quest blob if it had a body as well.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it was similar to that. The way that you raised it or the way that treated it would have it grow into like different, forms or different. It would have different traits or something. But yeah, it just reminds me of that in the sense that it's a farm with a bunch of little blobs crawling around
Yeah,
that change based on how you treat them, I'm guessing.
yeah, yeah. I'm not sure about that exactly, but
It's very cute. It really, really
Cool.
looks like Story of Seasons. The art, like the promotional art, really reminds me of Story of Seasons.
Yes, Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this. And this one's coming to basically everything, every console.
Perfect.
So, next we have a couple of release dates. So, Epic Chef, which not really a farming game, but I think there's some farming in it to get your ingredients for your cooking. It releases on PC and Switch and PS4 and Xbox One on the 11th of November. So that's very soon.
All right.
So if you've been looking forward to that game, you can go get that.
Epic Chef.
Epic Chef. Very blocky characters.
They are very
They've all
blocky.
got very big heads.
Uh-huh.
This is one of those games that I think's on my maybe I'll play it at some point game, but I'm not rushing out to get it immediately.
Epic Chef
I have too many games. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It does
I have too
not
many games.
immediately grab me, but I'm sure after seeing more like gameplay and stuff, I'd be like, that looks like something I'm gonna play at some point.
Yeah. Speaking of things I'm gonna play at some point, Moonglow Bay is releasing on the 26th of October as well.
You know, October is the month that everybody decided to release their games. There's just
it's busy.
So much.
I mean, this game, it looks both really weird and really nice at the same time. It's kind of got the Minecrafty blocky style.
Yeah.
But there are some views of it kind of zoomed out, which just look really like the colors in it are really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really probably why it's so good.
It's like was it voxel? Is that like 3D pixel art kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very pretty looking.
See, Micah, that's why I like having you on the podcast. You always have the right words for things I can't remember.
Like voxel?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you've been looking forward to that, that's that. And we have another date, which is early access for Dragon Acres, is going to be on the 1st of November.
Come on, that's basically October.
Yeah, it's just one day after.
Just basically October release date.
So if you've been looking forward to that one, congratulations. So many games.
It really is.
I don't know why I said congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Here's a game to buy.
Also looks cute. Also looks like maybe I'm not going to play it right away.
Yes.
But eventually.
Yes. Speaking of games you're definitely not going to play right away. So I don't know whether people remember or not, but there was a Kickstarter released for a game called Beasties by Roca Play. They're the people who did Stranded Sails. It was cancelled, the Kickstarter, because they got a lot of feedback on it and they weren't happy with how it was feeling, so they cancelled that before it finished. I also don't think they were getting many backers. But it looks like they are still planning on releasing the game, and they've put up a Steam page for it with a demo of the game, and they're planning on releasing it in early access this year. I'm not sure what's changed. Now,
I was
they do
going
have
to ask. I wasn't aware of this when it came to Kickstarter the first time around, so I was curious if anything had changed, or if they just said, you know what, we'll just put it on early access.
Yeah, I can't, I'm not noticing anything, but I haven't, there is a vlog that they've got about it, which I haven't watched because I only noticed this late last night and I was desperately trying to get to a specific point in Garden Story and then remembered I was getting up at 4:30, so I went to bed. So I've not watched that vlog, so I'm not sure exactly what's changed. But it doesn't look like all of the promotional material looks exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
The gameplay looks the same. The weird characters, which are like cylindrical characters bouncing around the world, they are the same. They
look like
it's basically
weebles.
the gameplay is match 3 combat.
Yeah.
Which I'm intrigued by.
Have you ever played Puzzle Quest?
I have not.
Puzzle Quest originally, I think, was maybe it was mobile before it was a DS game, but I know that it came out on the DS, and that's what I played it on. But it
Right.
was a high fantasy RPG that the combat was match 3.
Okay.
So my immediate thought when I saw this was, oh, it's Puzzle Quest, but with like monster catching or
Yeah.
monster training. Um, so I would maybe expect probably the same kind of match 3 combat where when you successfully perform a combo, you attack, and when you successfully perform a very large combo, your attack hits harder, probably.
Right. Yeah, that would make sense, yeah.
Um, I don't know how to say this. Uh,
Go on.
the art is very pretty,
Hmm.
as like, hand painted, feeling very, like painterly art style goes. However, this feels distinctly like a mobile game circa like 2010.
Right. Yeah. I can't get over these characters around the map, right? Because I don't you'd think that maybe it's because they didn't want to do a lot of animation or whatever, but the characters are very animated. Like, I'm looking at there's a gif of one of them mining, and you've still got arms with the pickaxe, and like you can see that the hat is jumping off the head, the eyes are moving, the backpack is all like there's a lot of animation. It's just not a
Oh, I
human
see.
normal human form.
Yeah, I mean, I will say from, an art professional artist perspective, I guess, that like that still looks like significantly less work to animate than like a full character. And that was my first impression too,
Okay.
was they did that because it's they can just put like the portrait of whatever character it is, and then the animation is the same. They don't have to
Oh, right.
do
Okay.
much
Okay.
to because it's a lot more work to 3D model a character, rig it, and then animate it in a way that looks natural or like not weird or awkward or low
Right.
budget. But it's a lot easier to
Yeah.
just take you know, and it's that kind of like After Effects animation where it's kind of like distorting the shapes rather than like fully animating them, I guess. You would say,
Right.
like
Yeah.
bobbing and like uh bouncing and stuff like that, where it's, the shape, the form changes a little bit, but it's not, fully animating limbs or something like that.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah, it's still, that I think doesn't really help much in terms of giving that feeling of like a 2010 like mobile or
Yeah.
adventure game. I get like point and click adventure game.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder why they didn't just like, because if you're trying to kind of make a easier to animate game, you would generally go for like 2D sprite type style game. But it feels like they've wanted to make it more modern and more 3D, but without actually doing the extra work,
Yeah,
which has just led to this really awkward uh, combination of things
right.
that doesn't. And I think that's probably the issue.
Yeah.
Like if it looked like Stardew, you'd be fine with that because that's a style of game and it's kind of that's what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas because it looks like I think the world looks a lot more similar to how Coral Island looks, for example, but then you've got these weird characters in the world and it just feels a bit jarring.
Yeah. Yeah, it just feels like a very distinct, like kind of dated style, I think.
Hmm.
Maybe not necessarily I'm getting like too specific with like mobile, but yeah, it does feel like that type of, I think maybe like there are a good amount of uh like adventure, like point and click adventure games that you can even just find on the Switch, but are like, PC games and things like that, that use that same kind of style where it's a very like well painted, well executed like environment or character or whatever, but it just feels old. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
It does say here
I
at the
wonder how.
bottom, inspired by, and then it lists Nexomon, Pokemon, Gems of
Yeah,
Wear, which I don't know what that is, but it does list Puzzle Quest
it does. Yeah, it does.
and Puzzle and
I wonder.
Dragons.
I wonder whether part of the issue is because obviously, oh, Gems of War looks like another match three puzzle RPG. Um, I'm wondering whether part of the issue is the match three mechanic in that I really had a period of time where it was the thing, with like Bejeweled and Candy Crush and stuff like that. And you don't, not to say that they don't exist anymore, but you're not really getting any kind of modern spin on that. And so it's almost dating itself in that way. And the I think it's certainly the graphics of the match three part of it that are probably the most dated looking.
Sure, yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe we're overthinking this.
maybe, but I don't know. Initial impression is this does not look like a game that would be coming out brand new in 2021. But
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's really great. Like Puzzle Quest is very fun. If you have never played Puzzle Quest, I definitely encourage it if you can handle match 3 games.
Well, therein lies my problem. I don't know if I actually like
Yeah,
match three games or not.
I can like tolerate them. Like I can if the rest of the game is
That's what
like
you want.
enthralling enough is like I can, it's
Yeah.
not something that like I despise. But I can't say that like match 3 games are my top 10 favorite game genres or anything.
it's it's absolutely the best thing you want attitude you want towards a game is I don't hate it. I
Yeah.
can tolerate it.
Yeah. They also have a weird
Yeah.
blurb at the bottom here that says this game is 100% plant-based and we care about diversity. I don't know what plant-based means in terms of
I
a
sus
game.
yeah, I suspect what they mean is there's no fishing in the game, stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Um, I'm not sure how that works in terms of you're capturing animals.
Yeah. Eh.
Because Ooblets does the same thing where there is no uh, fishing. You can fish, but you'll
Oh,
never
I
actually
see.
get catching animals.
I see. I see.
Which I totally understand. It's kind of like a lot of these games kind of normalize that as
Sure.
a game mechanic,
Right.
and they want to not do that. I have no objection to that. Um, uh, but in this one, they're then finding animals and capturing them and
Yeah.
using them to fight other animals doesn't really feel plant based to me.
No. Well, I'm very used to as a Monster Hunter fan. I'm very used to gray areas. Uh, as far as
Yeah, but
monsters are
it's not
concerned.
right, right. But like it's I don't have an issue with Pokemon doing it, right? Because they don't try and
They're not claiming to be.
say
Yeah.
they're not saying we're plant based, right? Whereas and I don't find the Ooblets one weird because they're growing them and they're not kind of like putting them in cages or anything.
Yeah. They're
It's
hanging
just
out and
the
dancing with
the
them.
it, it's calling that out, and then the main point of your game is to go out and capture animals.
Yeah.
Just feels contradictory to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
They'll probably hand wave it away like you're not actually capturing them. They're deciding to join your team or whatever. But, you know, we all know what it is.
Yeah. I mean, they say here they like to brawl, but,
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
I'm sure.
Anyway, so that's Beasties. I'm conflicted on this game, but it's there is no but there.
I
It is what
highly suspect that this will be very, very low on my list of games that I'm gonna play ever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Just doesn't really seem like it is gonna do it for me, but
No. Cool. I think that's all the news. Shall we get on to talking about Garden Story then?
yes.
Cool. I want to give a quick premise of the game, and then we'll go into details about how some of the mechanics work, and then we'll have some thoughts on it and kind of conclude how we feel about the game as a whole. We're not going to talk too much in detail about the story. There might be bits and pieces throughout when we're talking about the mechanics where we end up discussing part of the story, but we're certainly not going to talk about the end, partly because I'm not there yet, and partly because it's not that core to how the game works. And the kind of the premise is probably enough for you to get an idea of how it is.
Absolutely.
So I guess to start off, you are Concord, who is a grape living in the I'm a bit confused as to what is actually called what, because there seems to be, I think, is the Grove the name for everything?
I think the
And then
Grove is the world, or like
that's what I was thinking.
the
Yeah,
continent or whatever.
yeah, that's what I thought, but I just thought I wasn't 100% sure.
Mhm.
So you're a grape living in the Grove, where there are lots of other characters, some of whom are also other fruit, some of whom are frogs. There are other types of characters as well. We don't want to go too much into that, but
Mhm.
anyway, this world has guardians, and these are certain characters who are there to kind of help protect the world from the rot, which is an encroaching uh, generic evil that creates monsters around the place that you have to destroy. Anyway, you're taken. Not taken. You're not taken. You are. Uh, you
Sort
are
of
brought from. Well, you're
pushed
brought from
out
where
of.
you lived.
Yeah.
Um, to become the new guardian, and to help the Grove and the people, the characters who live there, and blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
There's lots of you're out on a quest to help save the Grove. Is that a fair
Yeah.
kind of summary of the premise?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
You oversaw an specific area of the hamlet called the kindergarten, which I thought was very cute.
Yes.
Spelled garden like garden.
Yes,
There's
it's
lots
a
of
weird combination of English and German there.
yeah.
Kindergarten.
There's a lot of very cute little I don't know if it's puns, but like little names and things like that that allude to other things and throughout the game. It's very cute.
Yeah, I find that one funny because obviously kindergarten is German for child garden.
Yeah.
And so calling it kindergarten is weird. It's
It's the
also
same thing, but
child garden, but
yeah.
in English German or German English.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was a pun or whether that was someone not understanding what kindergarten actually means. Anyway, not important. Not important. Yeah, so you're going around the world. You're kind of the main mechanic, I guess, is the combat mechanic. So it's not primarily a farming game, and we will get to the farming aspect of it, but it's much later on. We'll discuss that when we have it. But yeah, the main mechanic is your combat. So you obviously have all of the kind of monsters around the world that you have to destroy. You have a number of different weapons. What I love about this is that there are some weird weapons that aren't primarily weapons, but you use as weapons. So like there's a fishing rod, which is not called the fishing rod; it's called the dowsing rod, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But what I love is that it's primarily for fishing items out of lakes, but it's also a weapon.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is just
It's just
very
like the
weird and
ranged
fun.
weapon.
Yeah. It's very slow, but it's also good fun sometimes because you're like, oh, there's it's got quite a wide range of attack area as well. So if you see like a group of three, you can hit them all quite easily without them coming to get you.
Yeah, yeah, and it's good for getting around things too. Like you collect resources from things that you destroy in the world. Like if like a tree stump or whatever will give you wood, and you can use the fishing rod to reach one that's like maybe too far away from you to hit it enough times to destroy it, and then also to collect the stuff. It functions a lot like maybe like a hook shot in Zelda. The whole game very much reminds me of Zelda. It feels more like a very Zelda inspired game.
Yeah.
Than like a traditional farming game, I guess. But
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's kind of like the hook shot, but also you don't you can't propel yourself
right.
with it, I think would be the difference there. But
no grappling.
There's no grappling, yeah. There's other ones as well. Kind of just they have different areas of attack, different speeds of reload and stuff like that. But I think the fishing rod was the only one that I was like, that's a very fun and different one.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've also got a shield to protect yourself. There's an interesting thing. I've not quite figured out how it works, but sometimes it looks like you can attack with your shield. I think it's like how if you keep your shield up for a certain amount of time, it goes orange, and then you can bash an enemy.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a shield. I don't know if it's like a difference in quality or like how good it is or something, but the shield that I have is it goes from like you hold it in and it turns green. I'm guessing maybe that's just like the type of shield
you got
that it is.
The leafy shield.
Yeah. But I think that's what it is, because all of the weapons have some level of like a charge attack. If you hold it in, then it can do something. I guess aside from maybe the dowsing rod is just you hold it in and that's how you shoot it. But yeah, I think that's primarily how you do the like shield bash is you hold in the button, I think B to shield. Which was kind of a little bit hard to get used to initially, that like directional shielding. There's like the circle around you.
Yeah, I felt like the shield should have been like a shoulder button or something.
Yeah.
It feels weird it just being the B button.
It was also a little bit confusing what could be shielded and what couldn't. Like I know that the rot there's like roots that shoot little orbs at you, and those can be blocked. But then later on, there were some bubbles that an enemy was shooting, and those could not be blocked by the shield. They just went straight through it.
Oh. I never tried to shield myself for them because they were actually, I don't know whether you noticed this, if you shot them back at the enemy, it would stun it.
It did. It stunned it.
So I was always just hitting them.
Yeah. At one point, it was like kind of overwhelming, and I was like, okay, I'll shield it, and it just went straight through it, and I was like, okay.
Okay.
Also, there's some of the enemies spew rot. I guess I don't know. All of the enemies are rot. It's kind of cute in that way that like all of the characters other than the frogs are like crops of some kind, and then the enemies are the rot. So it's, but some of them spew that rot, and then it can just like. It's like an area of effect attack, and I think just goes through the shield or around it. You just can't. It's like a cloud. You can't really block it.
Yeah, I guess that one logically makes sense in terms of why you can't block it, though. I never would have expected that one. But yeah, the bubbles were, I guess, seem a bit weird that you can't block them, but I'm sure there's some reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the thing is you have these monsters around the place, just as you're going around that you sometimes have to destroy. And then There are also bosses in the kind of dungeons. I think there's four. Is it four main dungeons?
Yes.
Although I don't think the last one actually has a boss. I've not finished the last one.
Okay.
But I think it's slightly different dungeon.
I will say tentative yes.
You don't want to spoil too much, do
No,
you?
I don't.
Anyway, that's not important exactly. There's some dungeons with puzzles and there's bosses, which I actually found quite difficult to start with. The bosses, especially the first one, took
Yeah.
me quite a few turns, which so I think part of the issue is, so the other thing is you have dew, which is your recovery um, potion, which is mostly what
Mm-hmm.
it's used for. So you drink it and you recover your HP. Um, I think that takes a while to take effect. So it's like it's a good 5 seconds from pressing the button to you actually recovering your health. So you can't do it really quickly. So if you're like surrounded by enemies and you only have 1 health left, you have to like get away from them, find a place where you can go to then use the dew to actually not die.
Yeah.
Because there were many times where I was like a second away from healing myself and I died, and that was incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. Yes. I was in the same boat. There are other jars that you can get that some of
Yeah,
them
but
are
as with
like
everything,
quicker.
that's late game stuff.
Yeah.
So you know you can't get that for the first one, so
Right.
it's a bit
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah. It's there. Yeah. So later on you can like speed up how quickly you can take a potion, but
Yeah,
yeah, for the first one it caught me off guard because I think mostly the combat up to that point, up to that first boss, I was like, this is pretty straightforward, and you know,
yeah,
as someone who's played a lot of Zelda games, this feels very not like easy, but it was it was pretty easy to pick up, and I didn't feel like super challenged, I guess. And then
yeah,
that first boss fight I went in maybe a little too cocky and quickly
yeah.
got my butt handed to me.
I also I don't know whether this was just because of the progression, and you pick up more health as you go on, but I found the first boss was the hardest one.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so the first one took me like 6 or 7 tries, I think, to beat it.
Mm-hmm.
The second one took me 2 tries. I failed on the first and then got it on the second, and the third one I got straight away. Um, and I don't know whether that's just because the balancing wasn't done as well for the last ones, or whether it's like the last one, its moves just never really confused me as much. I think the first one actually, maybe not the most complicated one. I think the second one was probably the most complicated in terms of what was happening, but the first one certainly felt a lot more complicated than the third one. And I got, yeah, you're right. There's a lot to think about there.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're out in the world, it's like, oh, there's an enemy. I'll go kill it. Whereas here, you're like, there is so much happening in these boss battles.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think that maybe for me personally, I feel like it was a combination of feeling that initial feeling of being overwhelmed and underprepared and for
Hmm.
what the boss fight was
Yeah.
compared to the other combat as opposed to then taking on the later bosses and feeling more prepared for it in combination with once I got my butt handed to me at the first boss, then I was like, okay, I'm gonna make sure that before I go into a boss fight, I'm prepared.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I make sure that I upgrade a weapon or upgrade a jar or whatever. Make sure that I'm fully stocked on dew, and
Yeah.
that
I also
made a
wonder whether I.
significant impact.
It's obviously hard to remember, but I feel like they didn't actually make it clear until you were down at the bottom of the first dungeon that there was a boss.
Yeah.
Like they were like, "Oh yeah, you just go down here and you get what you need to get,"
Mm-hmm.
and then you go down and you're like, "Oh right, now I'm in a boss battle,"
I don't
which
remember.
isn't, which is fine. It just I guess that adds to the like, "Oh, I wasn't ready." Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember what they tell you. I know that they give you a very specific reason for why you have to go to the first dungeon.
There was something you needed to progress this story, right? You need to find someone, and to find
That's
someone
it.
you need
Yeah.
to you need to create a thing to get to that thing, and to create that thing you have to get this other thing.
That sounded very confusing, but
I know,
yeah, yeah,
but I can't really give that away without kind of spoiling some of the story.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You can remember it now.
Yes. Um
I think the other thing is, and this was kind of my biggest thing, is that the failure state was so frustrating with a boss because of what happened next. So when you typically have an RPG, you die and then you kind of go back to maybe the start of the dungeon or something like that.
mhm.
Um,
Or
with
even
this,
like the last inn that you saved at, but
yeah, something like that. Whereas the problem with this game, because it is a kind of a day-based, life simulation game as well,
mhm.
you die, and you wake up in your bed the next day, and you have to restart your day basically. And so it's a long way from waking up to getting back to that boss battle.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so another facet of that too is that I don't think we've talked about this yet, but part of the gameplay loop is that you
Mm,
day to day you have tasks that you pick up from a
yeah,
job board, and you have to finish those tasks before you go to bed at night and start the next day. So if you go into the boss fight with some unfinished tasks, not knowing that when you die it ends your day, then you just
yeah.
lose those tasks and you can't you don't get an opportunity to,
Yeah. And that adds to the length of getting back to it as well, because then you're like, oh well, I want to finish these tasks before I go to the dungeon again. So before you end up getting to the dungeon, you end up doing three completely unrelated things.
mhm.
Um, which yeah, I don't hate it. I don't think it's bad. It's just a little bit frustrating when you die. And I don't know how, I feel like they could maybe improve that by not having you wake up the next day if you die the first time.
Yeah.
Um, like maybe you
Maybe
just
somebody
respawn at the top of the dungeon or
rescues you
something
and
like that.
says like, "Well, be careful.
Yeah.
If you die, you're gonna pass out, and we have to take you home, and you'll have to sleep for a
Yeah,
day or something."
something like that. I mean, even yeah, I don't know exactly the best way. It's just
Right.
that I find that the best games with good combat is have really quick resets.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure the best way to do that lore wise in this game, because they've almost painted themselves into a corner with this one. It's hard to get out of, but
Yeah,
I feel like they probably could have done better with that.
I think as long as it's just, I think generally the concept of like these are the consequences of dying is fine
Yeah,
for me, but maybe that initial, like just the first time, like you said, maybe it like communicates that to you, or it communicates that to you in the game some way, uh that if you die it's gonna, advance the game forward a day. um
yeah,
because I do
yeah,
like the level of tension that the boss fights have, where the combat, like prior to that, like out in the overworld, I think I feel like it's not as stressful.
yeah.
When nightfall
Because you could just run
sets,
away, right?
yeah, and when nightfall sets, it does the rot increases in the overworld, and
Yeah,
the type
there are
of
more
rot,
difficult weapons
yeah,
than what weapons, enemies and stuff.
yeah, the type of rot is more difficult. So that is definitely like adds to the tension. But when you're just going about your day doing tasks that you need to do, um, to to level up the like specific categories for the town that you're in, that is nice, not having that pressure or that tension while you're doing that portion of the
Yeah,
regular gameplay loop, where then having that I'm going into a dungeon, I have to fight this boss, and the boss is actually hard and there are actual like significant consequences if I die. I like having that juxtaposition, but yeah, I think maybe communicating what happens if you die beyond the first time, maybe it would be good. But again, like who knows? Maybe that was part of the design because then after that, I definitely made it a point to be like better prepared for the boss fights. Um, so maybe that was the intention. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't. As I say, I don't hate it. It's just kind of it was a bit of an annoyance where I was so close to defeating it multiple times, and then you die, and then you're like, oh, I felt like I wanted to kind of stop playing at that point
Yeah.
for a wee bit because I was like, this is really annoying. I just want to do this battle again, and now I have to go through a whole day and do everything I need to do and prepare myself and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
There was no like able to just like soft reset or I don't know. It was just a bit annoying. It's not a massive thing, and I've done all the bosses now, so I'm I can do the rest of the game a bit more casually. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is. I think overall, I think the combat is good. I think it's fun and fast. Like I feel like it's responsive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel I never felt like when I died it was because the controls weren't doing what I wanted them to do, except the dew. There were a few times where I was annoyed because that didn't happen as quickly as I felt like it should. But other than that, like I never felt like I died because I didn't like I my shield didn't work the way I expected it to. It was always because I wasn't doing it properly and I wasn't good enough,
Hmm.
which is always nice.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting because I definitely felt sometimes I didn't feel like it was like I was in trouble because something didn't work the right way or something, but there were definitely times where with certain weapons I felt it almost felt like there was a stutter to it. Um to me where like I almost felt like the time to execute was a little bit slower than uh I would like it to be, but I don't know. I think I
Was
definitely
that
got
with the
used to that.
was that with a specific weapon or was that just with all of them?
I would say it was with at least three specific weapons. I felt like that
Right.
was the
Okay.
case. Um, I mean, the first weapon that you get is the pick, and that is maybe more sword like than anything else.
Yeah.
And that definitely felt like it didn't feel like I was naturally swinging a sword. It felt like there was a little bit of a stutter to it. And
Right.
then a
Okay.
couple of the other later weapons, I kind of felt the same way. But it wasn't enough to like, make me not like the combat or be upset with the game or anything. It just was something that I noticed as like, that maybe feels like that could have been a little bit snappier. Um,
Yeah.
but I think part of that too is just because it's such a direction based game, maybe like as far as
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
uh like combat and like defense and stuff goes. It really relies on where you're pointing your directional stick. So maybe that has some factor in why it felt like that. But all in all, though, I really like the combat. It felt like a good combination of like uh, a 2D dungeon crawl and like an old Zelda game. I think a lot of the Zelda, I why I say Zelda so much is partially because it's got that like kind of SNES Zelda retro isometric retro feel, but the music in specific too very very much feels like Minish Cap music, like like Wind Waker. It's sometimes I would walk into a shop and I'd be like, oh, I could have sworn this was in Minish Cap or something.
Yeah.
It's very distinct feel. So
I'll tell you, there was one other thing that was difficult to get used to, and that was the uh, the fact that you had two kinds of stamina. So you have your health, and then you have your attack stamina, and there's like a limited number of times you can attack within a certain period of time, and that took a lot of getting used to. Um, it added an interesting way of thinking about things because you can't just like slash 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 like constantly be attacking.
Sure. Yeah.
So it adds more to the what's the word I'm looking for? Just how you have the
Strategy, I
strategy.
guess?
There you go,
Yeah.
strategy. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it adds more to the strategy, which makes it more interesting. But certainly, you know, up until like the end of the first boss, it was very difficult to get used to because you know I'm used to more games like, you know, you take Zelda for example, where you can just slash away. Now there might be some reasons why you wouldn't want to keep slashing,
Right.
but that reason is not you're not physically able to.
You're out of
You
stamina.
know,
Yeah.
exactly. That felt a little bit weird. Um, it's also a little bit annoying that that was the same stamina as your running stamina.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so like you couldn't slash twice and then run away. You had to slash twice and then walk away.
Or what I did many, many times was run through an area and then try to engage something in combat, and I'm out of stamina.
yeah. Yeah. So again, I'm not saying I hate it. I don't hate it. Um, would I have preferred had they had different staminas or the stamina was just for running? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Is I quite liked the addition to the strategy, and it would make it a very different game without it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a little bit frustrating when you would want to, as you say, you know, run and then attack, and you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Was a bit frustrating.
Yeah. I do kind of almost feel like maybe it's not necessary that the running have stamina at all. I think that there is it's like adventure game culture to require stamina to be or running to be tied to stamina, and I don't think that necessarily needs to be the case. I think that it can tend to, like, in instances like this, it can tend to slow things down quite a bit. I think that it would be require maybe not just as much strategy, but challenging enough strategy to, or like similarly challenging strategy, if it were just the stamina was required for your attacks and for combat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't
You're
need
probably
to, you know, I think that it's similar, I guess, in design to like when Pokemon got rid of running shoes. Like you had to have running shoes in order to run. Like, doesn't really doesn't need to be the case. And like, sure, it maybe makes it a little bit less realistic if you're like not burning stamina when you're running, but I don't know
that's what games are, right?
Right.
Games are abstracting a real world, something that would be realistic into something that's less realistic, and it's just about where you balance those things.
Yeah.
You know, it's not realistic to be a grape. You know, if you really want to boil it down to realistic, we're not playing games to be realistic.
It's true.
We're playing games to have fun.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that it. I think maybe then too it if you're not going to get rid of the concept that you burn stamina by running, then I think there needs to be maybe enough of a middle ground that, like, between speeds where like walk speed is comfortable enough that I don't feel like I have to run everywhere. I did feel I had to run everywhere in this game because the walk speed felt pretty slow.
Yeah. Now tell me, did you run by holding down the button, or did you use the essentially the tumble functionality? So you can either hold down the button and you move slightly faster, or if you just tap the run button, you do this like forward roll almost, that, like instead of running. Which one were you
the
using?
Zelda roll? That's what
Of course.
I hate to
cool.
but it is, you know.
Just yeah.
I would kind of do like a combination of the two. Like, I would, if I was really trying to get somewhere quick, I would like tap the roll, and I don't know if that like really actually increased the time that otherwise
we
if I were
we
just
need the
like,
speedrunner to tell us.
Yep. Otherwise I would just go from, if I'm going from like one place to another trying to pick something up for a task, I'll just hold the run button.
Yeah.
I think if that were
Fair
the
enough.
speed normally, and then the roll used stamina, that would have been fine.
Yeah. That's an interesting idea.
But it's
Anyway, so I
not
think
to be anything to be unexpected as far as adventure games go. That.
yeah. So I think that's kind of most of the combat. I enjoyed the combat, and I enjoy the bosses were interesting battles, even if the later ones weren't. I didn't find them difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they were interesting as much. I found. Um, Fishing. There's not a huge amount to talk about fishing, but I wanted to just mention I really liked the fishing minigame. Some fishing mini games can be really frustrating. This one basically, once you've gone put your line out, it basically tells you 3 or 4 directions to tap in. I liked that. I was a little bit frustrated you couldn't use the D-pad for that. I don't know why you had to use the analog stick. I felt like I automatically should be using the D-pad for that. So I really wish they'd done that. But
Yeah,
other than
I
that,
did the same thing.
I liked that.
Yeah, I found
That was
myself
a good minigame.
hitting incorrect buttons accidentally, like just because I had to use the analog stick.
Yeah.
Not that it really. I mean, maybe it helps to like explain how it works a little bit more. Like, it brings up cards that you have to hit the directional for, and then like reveals them one at a time as you complete them, but they're slowly descending. And if you screw one up, then it descends faster, just for like a second. And they start to get like darker, like they're disappearing.
Yeah.
So I would find myself like hitting the directional like up for up, but it was like maybe slightly left and up, so it would register as like left.
I think that's the biggest annoyance with having to use the analog stick.
Yeah.
I didn't have that issue myself, but I certainly I'm surprised I didn't have it, and I would expect most people would have that issue.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a much easier and comfortable fishing minigame than like Stardew. That's for sure.
Than basically everyone, I think.
Yeah.
I think I feel like it's the first fishing minigame I've actively kind of enjoyed. It was fun,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's all really to talk about fishing. You don't get fish, you get
It's
building things, like you get what are they called?
materials.
Like wood and materials.
I think they call them
I'm
resources.
so bad with words just now. Yeah.
In the game.
Yeah. And so you have to do it for some certain things, and then you can also there's some puzzles in terms of using the fishing rod to get switches.
Yeah.
And sometimes the switches moves and stuff like that. I'd say it was a fun little thing.
Yeah.
Kind of necessary for the story, but not exactly too difficult.
Yeah. They call, I think, other than the pick, I think all of them function, all of the weapons function as like tools also, and they do call them tools in your bag. So it's because they all have like a functional purpose beyond just like using them to attack.
Yeah.
They're all kind of
certain
like
things you can only harvest with certain of the tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously.
It's a plant-based game. Figuratively and literally, I guess.
Fun. There's also building in the game, which I've put a really complicated sentence because it is really complicated and weird, and I don't know why they
when I read this,
abstracted
I was like,
it so much.
Oh boy.
But I'm not wrong. Like,
No,
this
you're
is
not.
Exactly
Like
what it is, right?
That was the emotion that I felt when I encountered it, or like got to it the first time.
Yeah. So basically, you spend resources. So you spend some of these resources to get a thing, like a repair box or another thing to put in a specific place, to then also put more resources in that thing, which then overnight an architect builds the actual thing.
Yep.
It's so complicated, and I do not know why it's so complicated.
You also have to build it in a place that's not where you're going to put it. So you have to like build it as an item, and then you carry that, you like put it in your bag and then carry the item to your.
Yeah, I think there were two different kinds of building as well. So there was repairing, which is kind of that's how the repairing worked. There were, you can put certain things around, like You can put these boxes to store things in, and the
Yeah.
forage box, which is
Hmm.
how you do some of the tasks and stuff. You just put them where you put them, and I actually quite liked that because it meant that I could put things where I wanted to rather than having to kind of travel to a different part of the map to
I'm
do certain tasks, which
gonna
was quite nice.
gonna be honest with you. I don't think I touched a single portion of
Oh, really?
building. uh,
Interesting.
I unlocked a couple things. There are like things that you can unlock to build,
Yeah,
like benches or like
lamps.
yeah, um, which is nice. But I just didn't. I think part of my disinterest with it was that this isn't until like maybe halfway through the game that you get like close to halfway through the game that you get the ability to build or
Yeah,
repair things. So it's a new like gameplay mechanic that they're introducing at almost the halfway point. And
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
was already kind of feeling like I was just getting the hang of the loop of like the daily loop of doing the tasks that I need to do, doing the
yeah,
like main objective for the day, going home and resting. In addition to like, going to certain areas to farm specific resources for specific tasks or whatever. Or for upgrading things that I wanted to upgrade or whatever. So like adding a new mechanic wasn't like a bad thing to me, but it just was there was enough of it that I was like, I'm gonna just probably do the bare minimum that I need to do for for
yeah.
this mechanic.
That's fair. That was mostly what I did. I placed a few things to make my life easier in the different places, so that I had a forage box
Yeah.
and a village box very close to where I was sleeping.
It
That was really all I did.
it was very close
Um,
to the end of the game for me that I did think to myself when I was passing or like running to a forage box that was across the map. I was like, I wonder if I could just like carry a forage box with me around and then plop it places that I need to.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I suspect if that was your attitude towards the building, I'm going to guess that it was also the same towards the next thing, which is kind of what this podcast is mainly about, which is the gardening, which they call it
Yes.
gardening, not farming.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I think I can't remember whether I mentioned this earlier on or not, but you only get access to the gardening in the third of four areas, and it's like halfway through that third area. So it's about 2/3 of the way through the game that you access the gardening,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically not needed. It's kind of like it almost feels like it was just kind of shoved in there at the end to have something so they could say they have farming.
Yeah, it's it really it very much feels inconsequential.
Yeah.
And it's also a little confusing in that like they make a point to say maybe I misread this and maybe you got it a lot better than I did, but they make a point to say that like this is how you garden. You use the spade tool that you get to dig a hole in a specific plot that's marked, and then you have to water it with your dew, so you just like activate your dew standing near it, and then you plant a seed. Once you get the seed pouch, which is when they're teaching you about gardening, they give you a seed pouch. You plant the seed, and that's pretty much it. But they say, you have to wait for it to grow, and it takes, depending on what type of seed it is, like the first seed they give you, I think it says 3 days to grow. Um, and when you plant it, then it says growing. When you walk past it, you get a little window, a little pop up that says it's growing. But there is part of the story that requires you to get an item from growing seeds, from growing a crop. And out of curiosity, the next day after I planted it, I just hit it to see if it would give me something, and it just gave me what I planted. So like it gave me the crop that I had planted. So I didn't need to wait 3 days. I don't know why it told me that I had to wait
Amazing.
3 days.
I'm gonna guess that's a bug.
Okay.
That feels like a bug to me.
Maybe you get more if you
Oh,
wait the full
possibly.
3 days. I don't know. I definitely did not have to wait 3 days because part of me was like, I don't really want to wait 3 days just to do the next
Yeah, yeah,
task when, I'm at the point in this area where I've done pretty much everything that I need to do other
yeah.
than, uh, you know, daily tasks or whatever.
Yeah, I was just kind of a bit meh about it all, and I'm not like I'm just not really sure why they bothered putting this mechanic in. Is all
Yeah,
my point. Like, it's not a farming game. It's it's an RPG
right.
that happens to have a very small farming mechanic, and honestly, I don't think the game would be worse without it.
I
you know?
don't know. I have completed the game, but I have not tried to like boot up the game since I completed it. I'm assuming that there is post game where you can just carry on, you know,
Yeah,
doing whatever it is that you want, like just doing daily things. And I
yeah,
would guess that's probably where it's intended that you maybe like focus more on like building and gardening and just kind of like the life sim aspects of the game. Um,
yeah. I guess the thing is that it doesn't feel like a it's kind of geared towards a life sim game. Now it is
right.
technically a life sim game, and I like the combination of the life sim and RPG, but it doesn't feel like it's the sort of game I will just it's not a complicated one, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
very detailed life sim game. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't feel like the sort of game I'm going to keep playing after I finish the story. I'm going to finish the story. I'm definitely going to finish the story.
Yeah.
I'm so close and I'm enjoying it.
It's very
But
much.
I don't think I'm going to touch it after that.
Yeah. I would like to say that like I want to, but I don't know that I will. I think that if I
Yeah.
were playing it at my own pace and it wasn't, you know, like I wanted to complete it before we recorded this episode so that I could talk about it fully. If I were just like the podcast wasn't a factor at all, I just picked up the game and I was playing it, I would probably take a little bit more time to like complete it. Like my completionist brain would kick in and want me to, get the like max upgrade that I could get before I complete the game, because that's typically how I play those types of games. But now that I've completed it, I don't know that I would go back to to do those things at this point. I don't know if
Sorry.
that's bad or good. No, I'm just, I didn't have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
like you didn't complete the game. I didn't have to complete the game. I made it, my
Yeah.
own personal goal to complete it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think that maybe if I hadn't done that and I were just playing it as any other game that I had just picked up and was
Yeah.
playing to play, I maybe would have done that differently. But it, now that's what I'm saying though. Thinking about it now, like would I have actually completed it if I got would I have like burned myself out on it? Because now that I've completed it, I don't feel the need to do that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. 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 Possibly. Anyway, I think it doesn't. For a farming game podcast, I think we're just kind of a bit meh on the farming
yeah,
aspect of it, and
yeah, it's
I'm
very
not. I'm
much
not really sure it needed it.
an adventure game first and foremost.
Yeah, which isn't a problem. It feels like kind of that was tacked on for,
Yeah.
like, they didn't feel they had enough in the game, or I don't know why they felt the need to do it, but I wouldn't have missed it had it not been there.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
I don't know. Maybe they felt like they had to, considering how like season heavy or
I guess,
like
yeah.
farming heavy themed the game is.
But I mean, that doesn't mean that you have to do any of the farming, right? Like, the
Right.
story is that people are farming things in one of the areas,
Mhm.
right? And that's, like, you could have just left it at that. Like, the villagers are doing that. That's fine. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you need to have it as a gameplay aspect.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
It's there if you want it, I guess. I'm sure that you
it
could
is.
like get all of
It's
the
incredibly simple though.
seeds, and I'm sure there's
Like, all
something that
five
you
of
get
them.
for for growing all 5 different crops. And
Yeah, it's not. I think the thing is, it's an incredibly simple one as well. Like,
yeah.
you literally, as you say, you dig, you water, you plant. That's it. Done. Um, you know.
I guess I'm curious maybe if like the type of dew that you use has an effect on the crops, but I would guess probably not.
I don't know. Yeah, it's possible because it does. Yeah, maybe I'm being a bit unfair because I haven't spent too much time actually doing the farming. And when you plant a seed, it does have a little kind of calculation to try and figure out what you're going to grow. So it might be that different things happen in different areas and stuff.
Sure.
But I guess the problem is that because it's so late in the game, you just don't feel that
Yeah.
enthusiasm to do it.
There are other things that feel more pressing at that point
Exactly.
in the world.
So, just a couple of other things to talk about before we conclude. I've written a lot about the tasks, but I feel like we probably just need to brush over that. There's three different kinds of tasks. There's the daily tasks, which Micah mentioned, where you've got like a board and you have up to 3 tasks to do that day.
Mm-hmm.
They're combat or foraging or building. There's story tasks, which obviously you need to do to finish the story, and then there's side quests, which they call favors. And all I wanted to say about that was I like the name of that.
Yeah, I do too.
That's all.
Um,
Did you have anything to say on tasks?
Just that I mean maybe it's worth mentioning that the tasks do level up. Like you mentioned, there's 3 different ones: is combat, foraging, and maintenance.
Yeah,
and those 3 are 3 categories that each town has. That as you're completing tasks in those categories, then it levels up like a bar for the town that you're doing tasks in.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the like end goal is as far as does it actually change the town to some degree when you hit like max on those stats? Is there a max?
I think you're unlocking things as you go. So like there's some extra things in the shops and stuff like that.
Okay.
I guess you probably don't notice it very much unless you're actually paying attention.
Sure.
To that. And most of it isn't necessary for the finishing the story.
Right. There was one specific side quest favor that I couldn't complete until I got to a certain level in one of those categories. So maybe
you also at one point you have to get through the story. You have to level. I think it's the improvement or the maintenance one up to level 2 before you can actually complete. But it's very very minor stuff. Like if you'd done one task on one day, you were basically at level 2. So
sure,
it was very easy to do.
Yeah.
Just one thing I wanted to add. I don't know whether you have anything else, but I find it really annoying that when you go into the menu to change an item, it doesn't pause the game. I died a couple of times because of that. And it felt wrong.
Initially, I didn't know that it was doing that, but I've been playing a lot of like Final Fantasy 14 where it does that too. So I feel like I'm a little bit more used to it at this point.
It just feels like something that we've,
I don't know that in
it
this
feels like
specific
something
game.
That, it feels like something that part of the problem is the menu covers most of your screen.
Right.
So you can't see that the game's continuing.
Yeah.
And I just found it really off-putting, and I died a couple of times because of it, and it's really annoying. I mean, even just simple things like I'm playing, and then I need to pay attention to something in life. I press the menu button, and I just expect it to pause because that's what happens in most games, in my experience.
Well,
but no, that was the wrong button to press.
So here's the interesting thing about this: the games that I play that I'm used to that for are like Final Fantasy 14, which is an MMO. Monster Hunter is like that because you have like a time limit and you are going through this map and whatever. Dark Souls games are like From Software games where it kind of adds to the difficulty by not being able to pause the game. But in those instances, you can't just straight up pause the game. Like that's the point. You can't pause it and your menu doesn't pause it. But for this game,
whereas here you can
do
pause
have
it,
a pause
just
button.
not in that button.
Yeah, there is a pause button, but it's not the menu button, which is kind of I don't
So
understand
frustrating.
why. That seems
I
very
know.
counterintuitive, I guess, to why you would have the menu not pause the game in the first place. Um,
Yeah.
so
Annoying.
I don't know. Maybe it's to like increase the difficulty of like decision making if you need to because when you get more jars for dew, then you have to like jump between jars of dew through your menu in order to equip them and then use them in the world, which
It,
makes it a little bit more
I guess.
difficult. But
Yeah. My problem is it's not fun extra difficulty.
yeah,
It's just
it's not.
frustrating extra difficulty.
I agree.
Like, I don't know why they do it. It was just a small thing. It didn't ruin the game for me. I got used to it.
Right.
And you just have to kind of run away from enemies if you want to change a weapon
Mm-hmm.
that you don't have on your hotkeys,
Yeah.
which took me half the game to find out there were hotkeys. um, but it is what it is.
Well, the other frustrating part of it too is that because it's a time-based game, like the day progresses,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
as time passes,
Yeah.
if you pause it, not realize, like if there were a couple
Yeah.
times where I would be, like just in my house, and I would go to the menu thinking I paused it, or not even just in my house, but like in an area that was safe where
Yeah.
I felt, and then suddenly it's nighttime.
Yeah. Annoying.
But
So I guess. Oh, sorry.
I just like you said, minor complaint, I guess.
Yeah, it's not a massive thing. I think overall, then, I enjoyed this game. It was good fun. It's not a farming game though. Don't expect it's a farming game.
Yeah.
Like if you don't like the, an RPG with the kind of standard RPG combat, 2D RPG combat, then don't play it. But if you like that, it's a really nice one. It's fun, kind of world to be in.
If you
I enjoyed
liked
it.
Minish Cap, you will probably like this game.
Yeah, I mean, or really any 2D Zelda.
Yeah. Yep.
It's very very much like them.
Mm-hmm. I really really liked it a lot. I liked the story. I liked the characters a lot. I really loved the. I don't think it. We've kind of talked about it already, so I don't think it's really a spoiler or anything. If it is, you can cut it. But I like the idea that everything is kind of seasonally themed. I like that you have seasonal towns. You start in spring and then summer, and and that it's. I like that concept. In addition to the fact that it's a time-based game, it's about
Yeah,
these organic fruits and vegetables and crops and whatever plants, and it's there's the enemy is the rot. I just love the like world that they
yeah,
built and that they wrote for these little kind of like unassuming fruits and vegetables and stuff, and it's very cute. All the characters have a lot of personality. I love the art style.
yeah,
While there are some complaints for like how you get to the gameplay loop or how they like add to it later
yeah,
on in the game, I think as far as gameplay loops go, it's a very comfortable one. Once you get used to it,
yeah,
it's really easy to get lost in like I'm doing my tasks, I'm doing my like I feel comfortable doing what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm making a difference in the game. And
yeah. I think overall it's a nice combination of life sim and kind of combat
mm-hmm.
RPG. I think it's done really nicely.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Well, thank you, Micah, for joining me to talk about Garden Story.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for having me in the sense that it pushed me to complete this game. Not that I didn't want to complete it, but I have a habit of starting games and then putting them down and not getting back to them, which is what I initially did with Garden Story. And then when you were like, "Do you want to be on and talk about it?" I was like, "Yeah, that's actually also a good excuse for me to complete the game." And I did, and it was great.
Yeah, cool. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter mostly at Micah the Brave, Micah. That's it for the most part. I'm on Instagram sometimes, and it's the same at Micah the Brave. But it's pretty infrequent. Twitter's mostly where I'm at.
You can find me on Twitter at the ScottBot. Scott has one T. You can find the podcast on Twitter at THSPod. You can email us if you'd like to email us from our website, harvestseason.club. There are also links to everything you might need there, including our Patreon, which has special episodes of the podcast. And if you subscribe, next week you will get an episode where we talk about Tamagotchis.
My favorite topic.
Because I got some Tamagotchis and I wanted to talk to Micah about it.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I think that's everything. Thank you for joining me again.
Thank you for having me.
Until next time,
have a good harvest.
Good harvest.
The Harvest Season is created by Rochelle Delaney and Al McKinley, with support from our Pro Farmer level patrons, Kevin and Stuart. Our art is done by Micah the Brave, and our music is done by Nick Burgess. Feel free to visit our website, harvestseason.club, for show notes and links to things we discussed in this episode. Thanks for listening.
That was the most on we've both been for one of those, I think, so far.